You believe it's 2026 already and there's some kind of duping fiasco on Animal Jam? What? Duping on Animal Jam Classic? No, that would never happen. Honestly, not too surprised this did creep up again, but I'm a bit surprised at how it's all happening, I'm not gonna lie. Well, we've seen Animal Jam have duping methods discovered multiple times throughout its lifespan so far. How Animal Jam has actually handled it this time around isn't something they've done before, which I think is pretty interesting. So I want to talk about it in today's video, and I'll also just, give a preface to all you, Brady Lap sweats out there. Be careful trading right now. You never know who's been duping and who has some duped items. So all this kind of unfolded during last night and the day before, where people were discovering items that they traded for becoming untradeable, which is kind of weird because this isn't usually something that happens on the game. I've gotten reports as well of some people being permanently banned from the game, although knowing that they might have been duping themselves. Let's be real. Animal Jam usually doesn't ban people that have duped items unless they have broken other rules. So I just want to preface that also. Now it seems like a lot of the items that were duped kind of sourced from one person that I believe I have talked about in another video where I mentioned another duping method that kind of went under the radar for a lot of people, but it was kind of exploited behind the scenes by a lot of people. I mentioned it in this video about my shops and a lot of bugs and exploits going on with that a lot of people were kind of having their heads turned about. A lot of what I talked about in that video was people listing items for higher prices than naturally possible in-game using modded clients and whatnot, third-party programs. But there was also people using third-party programs to pretty much duplicate items using my shops. Now, the same person that was to blame for this duping method, I'm gonna assume they probably just used that duping method, got a bunch of items, and are, have been slowly trickling them out into the economy over the last while and kind of been dumping them hard. If not that, they found another duping method, or it might have been a very similar duping method, because I do know they themselves reported that duping method to Animal Jam themselves. But I did mention the term untradeable items. This isn't something exactly new, but it is kind of new for a lot of players because I don't think a lot of people knew this was a thing. I'll just quickly explain here. So pretty much with my shops, when you sell an item in your my shop and list it there, you'll notice there's a little shopping icon there now. Now, once you sold this item, it usually gets removed from your account. However, if you're in a state where you're offline and an item gets sold, it's still technically on your account until you log back in. However, there's been times where people have intentionally or unintentionally pretty much kept the item in this state where it's in its shopped state, but another player also buys the item from the shop, thus duplicating it, but it's left in an untradeable state. Now, there was an exploit last year that allowed players to do this, but also make the item tradable again, so they would pretty much duplicate it and still be able to trade the original item. A lot of big items were targeted back then by this, one-of-a-kind magenta items, extreme items, and also just general variety of items like headdresses and furries and stuff. Now, that's what I'm assuming this person exploited with to dupe a bunch of items, and have now been offloading them over the last few months or so until it started catching up with them. Seems just yesterday, a lot of people started reporting this happening. They were trying to trade for an item that was on trade, but it will pretty much say that they no longer own the item, despite them owning it, despite them having it on trade, it will say that they don't own it. And there is a difference between items like that and then just regular items that people try to trade for, as you can see in the video on screen, where the person tries to trade for that furry hat and then tries to trade for the other item. It allows them to trade for the other item. That's because the furry hat in this case is duplicated. This is what I meant by this is an interesting approach for Animal Jam handling this. I didn't expect Animal Jam to really take a look into this further than just patching the exploit to begin with, but they are cracking down on duped items in general, I guess. So these items that have kind of been duplicated, presumably through this shop method, because I don't imagine why else it would, give this no longer owns this item error otherwise. Items that were probably duplicated through that way will now produce this error if you have them. So this is actually the very first time in Animal Jam history that you can actually tell whether an item is duplicated or not in one very simple way. Because in years past, every time there has been a duplication method found, people lose their heads, but you don't know whether an item is duplicated or not. Every item is pretty much the exact same looking, so you really have no way of knowing if it's duplicated duplicated or not. Previously, Animal Jam would just kind of remove duplicated items from players' accounts, or people themselves, if they knew they ended up getting a duplicated items, would recycle themselves. So yes, guys, I know a lot of you are going to be like, wow, Animal Jam sucks. You know, I can't believe we're dealing with this. This is a slight W for them because they handled this pretty well, in my opinion. You know, it does suck for players that, you know, might end up with these duplicated items, but they still technically can use them. They just can't trade them, you know, like they probably would have hoped for. Like that person with that magenta furry in that video, they can still wear it. They can still use it on their animals. I'm not too sure if they recycle it or not, but it's forever on their account in some sense. Now, as for all of the viewers at home, maybe if you are worried about these duping items and stuff like that, I'm like probably 85% sure there's not an active duplication method going around right now. Otherwise, I doubt Animal Jam would be handling it the way they are. I would say 100% sure, but you know, Animal Jam hackers, you can never be too sure. But if you're worried you have a duplicated item, this is what I recommend. You know, just kind of seeing what items you can trade. This is if you have like pretty, you know, sizable worth of items, like beta set items, you know, high variety items, or even one of a kind magenta items or extreme items. That seems to what mostly was targeted in this duping fiasco, I guess. Recommend just putting them on your trade list, try trading with your alt account, see if it actually brings up that error, this no longer exists, or they no longer have this item. You know, there's a lot of people that kind of came to me talking about this that are worried about getting banned from the game. I don't think that's something a lot of you should worry about unless you genuinely did something to break the rules. I see a lot of people worrying about this. Genuinely wouldn't worry about it. You know, there's players that have duped items and they're not banned, which is why we had that video in the first place of that person with the magenta furry. You know, we wouldn't have discovered this if Animal Jam was just going to go on another banning spree, banning any player that had a duped item. I think Animal Jam has learned from the past anyway, where they have done that before, I'm pretty sure, banned players that had duped items. I'm sure they've learned in the past that not every person that comes across duplicated items actually is fully aware that the item is duplicated. They get caught in the crossfire and unfortunately might have hit a bullet in that time. So I think you know, this is kind of the best solution for right now anyway, if Animal Jam isn't going to, you know, just outright delete those items, which I'm kind of doubtful of. I think they would have already done it if they were going to resort to that. And third of all, just be careful trading, because from what I know, there is still actively items being put into this no longer owns states, I guess. I don't really know what to call this yet. Untradeable state, you know, I guess we can call them that term. Animal Jam is still actively doing that to items, I'm pretty sure, from what I've gathered. And just be on the lookout, you know, be careful trading out in Brady's lab, especially because that seems to be the hot spot as usual. Even though in the last year, people moved around from Lost Temples Isles to Coral Canyons and Crystal Sands for some god knows reason. The Animal Jam rarity scene never fails to confuse me sometimes. Yeah, you know, just don't trade people that literally look like new accounts, have like 5 achievements, and just so happen to have some of the rarest items in the game on trade. You know, that might be a dead giveaway. But I think that should be everything about this situation covered. This probably will not affect the average Joe, you know, just kind of doing his business on Animal Jam. But, you know, for the top 5% of traders, so to speak, yeah, you guys are in doomsday mode, I guess. So sorry about that. Big thank you to the members, though, of the channel for supporting yours truly. All you guys on screen have my heart. If you want to support the channel, get some extra perks, and also see your name here at the end of the video, some bonus content, all that stuff, hit the join button down below. But yeah, should have regular other videos, not about some kind of drama, duping, whatever the hell, soon. You know, not about some loser duplicating items on a 15-year-old flash game. So be sure to be on the lookout. Check out the last video. You know, that one was a long video that unfortunately flopped, but you know, check it out after this one. You know, it's on screen right now. You might as well check it out, huh? Do it for your old pal Cack. All right, guys, peace out. Catch you in the next one.